This is Mark and Charity's Coffee Podcast.
Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast for Provincial Election Day. Here in Ontario, it's Thursday, June 2nd, in the kickoff to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration in England today. Deep in Loyalist country. So if the Queen's got something going on, we're all over. They named the county after her son, for goodness sakes, Prince Edward County.
Mm-hmm. And an island.
So there's just a lot going on today, and at the end of the podcast, Charity and I are going to tell you who's going to be in the World Series, statistically speaking. There was a lot. It was a busy show. I don't mind admitting I'm kind of tired today.
Oh, well,
I had a lot going on.
Okay.
It was an exhausting radio show. And I didn't have nearly enough time in between to rest. You're very, very good at what you do, and I thought I'd have more time to relax before getting into the podcast, but you're a pro. It's like, let's go. Let's get this done.
Really?
Good for you. It's election day. I got things to do. I know,
We
right?
got to get out and vote
Got to do
for
that.
the shortest election in the history of the province. At least that's how it felt. It really did. I know you keep saying it's been 6 weeks. It hasn't felt like 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because it hasn't felt like it's in my face.
Yep.
It really hasn't.
Right.
I know the candidates are out there canvassing and talking to people and making the circuit, and you see signs everywhere. They're doing their thing. There's no question. But it hasn't felt shoved down our throats. It hasn't felt the urgency of it, maybe. I don't know. It just didn't feel like...
Well, the elephant in the room is in the United States, everything's a campaign.
Exactly.
They're still talking about 2024. And it's constant.
They started talking about 2024 after the day after Biden was elected into the White House.
It's constant, and it's fighting, and it's loud. And so every time we hear the word election, we go, in Canada, it's like 6 weeks.
But there have been elections before where it hasn't, it's felt like 6 weeks.
Right, okay.
No? Would you not agree?
Sorry, I'm sipping my water.
No, that's okay. But I believe when Doug Ford first ran, maybe
4 years ago.
Yeah, it kind of felt more out there, like the focus. Maybe because there's so many other things going on that the provincial election just kind of it's there. We'll get out and vote.
Municipal elections coming up in the fall, and we just came off of a federal election not that long ago, about a year ago. But in Canada, if you're listening somewhere around the world, I just believe in Canada we got it down. They're 6 weeks long. Our campaigns are 6 weeks long. The longest one would be municipal because it's set so we know the date. And candidates have already announced that they will be running for city councils, reeves, mayors, this sort of thing. So if they wanted to, we could start paying attention to them now for the next few months. But for the most part, provincial and federal, so our provinces and our entire country government, they last 6 to 8 weeks. And that's about it when the quote-unquote writ drops.
Do you think, and just a thought here as you were talking, because it was 6 weeks, but do you think people they have their minds made up already? Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why, too, you don't pay as close attention because you're like, I already know who I'm going to vote for.
I was a far, far younger man than I am today. It's like the Beatles' Help. Mm-hmm. When I was so much younger than I am today. I made a comment and somebody said, well, that's true, but I've really braced into it. Elections are decided by the undecided, which means if you are a conservative voter, you vote conservative. It doesn't matter the name on the ballot. If you're a liberal, if you're an NDP, if you're a Green. See, you're shaking your head. Have you voted for all the parties in your lifetime? No, you've always voted the same way for the same party all the time.
Not always the same, but
that's what I'm saying.
There's certain ones that, I go back and forth between.
See, there you go. That's my point is you are undecided until you get into that election. There are some people who only vote that party and will their whole lives.
Absolutely.
So my point is they never decide an election. They will always vote that, and this person will always vote that. It's always the people that look at it and say, no, this time I'm going to vote this way, that decide an election. So I don't know why when parties really go out, I'm really going to target my base. Why? They're going to vote for you anyway. The elections are decided by the undecided, the ones that are not dead set on one party and one set of ideals. It may be an individual this time. It may be an idea this time. It may be, because of a scandal that will turn you away from one party the next time. So yeah, I think I know what I'm going to do when I go. I'm still not decided.
See, you're one of those too. Yeah.
I'm not even decided today. I think I know, but I'm going to feel better when I got that little golf pencil in my hand.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make the X that I'm pretty sure then that's how I'm going to go. I think I know how I'm going to go.
Well, and ultimately too, you brought up the perspective or the notion this morning, a different perspective, because I always feel that if you can't complain if you don't vote, so get out and vote.
Right. Yeah.
And you had listened to a podcast recently. If you need a reason to go vote, that's kind of my last go-to. You can't complain if you don't.
Can't complain if you don't vote.
But
if you don't take part in the process.
Exactly. Then you can't say anything. Because you didn't have anything to do with it.
Shut your pie hole till the next
But you
election.
said that's actually the fear. One person said that's their fear of being the reason for this, and that's why they don't vote.
In the podcast, it said that actually, I shouldn't say they don't vote. It was an American podcast, and they never vote in the presidential election. Because they say the numbers are so huge, my vote doesn't matter. I hate that thought.
It does.
I can't even tell you how much I hate that thought.
Throwback would disagree with you.
Yeah, exactly. But their thought was, if I vote and the person I voted for wins and gets in and does a horrible job, it's my fault. And I don't want to do that. So I would rather not vote and say, see, that's why I didn't vote, because it's horrible. Right? Like it's so counterintuitive to democracy to say, I'm going to fight for your right not to vote and bitch about it.
Yeah.
Don't.
You know what?
Don't.
Not having responsibility is always easier. Of course.
Of course it is.
Of course. But are the consequences of not taking that step really worth it? I don't think so. So go and vote.
I know there are lots of things in society that are just too cool for the room. Oh, I don't do that. Lots of people do that. But if your go-to lean on is, I don't vote, you're a moron. It's okay to say you don't want to vote or you don't like the system, I get it. But don't vote because you think that makes you cooler than everybody else. I mean, people gave up their lives for this. There are people around the world who would kill to get it back who don't have it right now. Then please just go vote. And if you don't like any of the candidates or you don't like the political landscape the way it is now, and so there's nobody there, then go spoil your ballot. Go put a line through the paper. You still did
something.
You still, and believe me, if tens of thousands of people across the province put a line through it, that would be a story. That would come out that 81,000 voters in the province didn't vote for anybody. They voted through. You better believe every party would go, oh, nobody likes anything that's being talked about. What are we all missing in politics and government? What don't people like? That's saying something. So every vote does count. So go and do that. I'm such a homie on voting because my father was in the war and he equated that. It was like Election Day and Remembrance Day they were like holidays in my house. This is the importance of this is what it means to be Canadian. We get to do this because we fought for it. So don't take it for granted, young man. Yes,
and as
sir.
you pointed, there are places
sir.
in the world who don't have this luxury, this opportunity, the ability to do this freely and without worry of backlash or even going to jail or any sort of repercussions. So go out and do it. Don't forget that. Again, we were talking about that, how people can complain about how tough it is and how hard it is and how awful it is to live in Canada. We live in a really wonderful place in the world. Yeah. We really, truly do. And this is one of those reasons why, is because we have the right to do this. We have the ability to do this without any sort of, I hate using the word repercussion. I've been using it a lot, but any sort of recourse.
Right. No, I get it.
To deter us from doing it. Any fear of doing it. So do it.
Even south of the border, which they equate to be the freest country in the world, they are probably going to have people at the polls intimidating other people voting. They've already talked about it.
We saw it during the presidential election and all the questions around it and trying to put it out there that there's cheating and there's all these things that go on when in fact, in truth, that as we've seen, none of that happens. It's all intimidation and
they
fear.
hang around.
And it's horrible.
I get to go to Kenron Estates today and hang out with my people, right? In line, right? Just get in line. How's it going?
Oh, yeah.
Fill out the ballot, and then go have lunch.
Oh, yeah. You always run into a few people when you go and vote.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 people.
So
you
good.
say hi, you do your socializing, and away you go.
Speaking of that, though, 2 groups of people we want to thank, and I'll start with Group 2 first because I mentioned them, and that's the volunteers and
yep.
the returning officers and everybody who makes an election work. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for all the training you've done, for all the hours that you spend, for your belief in the system.
We did ask.
Thank you.
If they get paid. Do they get paid? I think they do.
And I think some do.
I think they do get a
some
fee.
volunteers, but it doesn't matter.
No, I know, but
nobody does it for the money.
No, but I do remember we asked that question before. And yes, they're all volunteer. They volunteer to do it, but I do think they get some, which is great.
Something there, yeah.
Which is nice too. A nice little bonus.
The second group of people I want to thank are all of the candidates. It's not easy. Yeah, it's like, well, you get eyes in or you get stars in your eyes. Think if you get elected, you're going to be.
Of course
and
you do.
yes, somebody's going to, and you want that. But you got to go bang on some doors. You got to do a lot of work, and you have to open yourself up to loads of criticism.
The anger, the arguments.
To put your name out there and say, I want to represent this area. And most people you interact with will not be pleasant. And it's not that they'll necessarily be, but most people are like, well, why should I vote? You know what I'm saying?
No, but as you just said, if you're trying to sway someone who's undecided, you have to take the chance.
You got
that
to. Yeah.
In the past, you might not be part of a party they are particularly fond of.
Right.
So yeah, you got to take that and try and convince them otherwise. And that's tough. Not a lot of people can do that.
Not a lot of people can do it. And I've talked to people who ran, and I thought they were pretty successful. They didn't win, but you got yourself a lot of votes. Was it a good experience? And they said, no, it was not. And I won't do it again. Because they were really unprepared for what happened on the campaign trail. And I don't mean nerves of being up at the podium for all candidates. That stuff they get.
That side of it would be tough too.
Waking up in the morning email saying, I hope you rot in hell.
Yeah.
Is not something that you expect to see when you open your email in the morning while you're running in an election. But they're in Canada, and there it is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But so thank you very much for doing that. It's all part of the system. So that's going on today.
Voting stations remain open till 9. And of course, we'll have live coverage here on 95.5 beginning at 9 later this evening.
She was elected over 70 years ago by birth to be our queen. Platinum Jubilee is going on today.
70
First of 4
years.
days. Yep.
She actually, Queen Elizabeth, became the longest reigning monarch in 2015.
Remarkable.
So she's had the title for quite some time. This is just the icing.
Yeah.
But yeah, 70 years
she's just showing
overtaking her great-great-grandmother, of course, Queen Victoria, who we celebrated just a couple of weeks ago.
And that was 64 years? Yes. 60, yeah.
Yeah,
Something
just
like
over 64 years, I believe.
We had that for
months
Galaxy
and
of
days.
Games.
But yeah, so
Impressive.
as you pointed out, nobody
I don't see who touches this. I don't think anybody gets 70 years. Because William and Charles will never ready in our lifetime.
No.
I don't plan on living 70 more. Even if it would have happened,
she will
shortly.
be the
God
only
love the queen.
I suspect in my lifetime, like the queen.
Right.
There
and whoever follows it, because you're going to live long after her, it'll always be Queen Elizabeth.
It'll always be Queen Elizabeth.
It was like it was something that happened. I can't remember what it was. I think it was Lake Superior State that has that thing about incoming freshmen. This is their lives,
Yep.
and it was those freshmen had only had Pope John Paul II as their pope their whole life. And at that point, I think, so they would have been born about the time he was, like, think about that.
I was going to say, he, for the longest time, was the only pope in my life that
if you're 65 years old, you've only known one monarch in England. Like, that's it. Like, my whole life. That's
it. My
it.
parents are both 70. That's the only reigning... That's it.
Life.
It's only been the queen their entire life.
She was one of the first people ever to send an email.
She was. Back in 1976, she sent the first electronic message from the UK to U.S. Secretary of Defense at the time. And she was the only British royal. She was one of the only people outside of top secret military circles to even do it. So and that was in 76.
Tipped her off as an ally, and her first email was,
she was the first.
What up?
She had the first coronation ceremony, the first televised coronation ceremony, of course, back in 1953. 27 million people in the UK alone watched it. And of course, since then, we've seen many highlights of the royal family broadcast around the world. She says we talked about, this was part of she was the first woman from the royal family to join the British Army, and she did that in World War II, and becoming a mechanic of sorts. Through that role, she learned how to drive and maintain vehicles through that role in the Army. And she owned how many Corgis and Dorgies? That was our question this morning. We had Who Let the Dogs Out and featured Corgis, and Vanessa knew, but how many has she owned through her?
Tad bit of controversy because somebody questioned the number, but I had guessed 30 and you said it was 30.
Mm-hmm. For her 18th birthday in 1944, she received her first Corgi. She was given a dog who she named Susan. And through her reign as monarch, she has had 30 Corgis who are many of them descendants of Susan.
That's just great.
It's incredible. It's awesome.
No rescue dogs at Buckingham Palace.
And Dorgies, which we had to look up with her, which are Dachshunds and Corgis, a mix of Dachshund Corgis.
So it's part Corgi, part pesky next door dog. Okay. All right,
but
now.
Very cute dogs. And you always see her with her dogs. Like when she's Corgis, when they show her outside the palace, she's usually walking in some field with her dogs running alongside her. But quite an amazing woman. What she has done in her life is just amazing. And say what you will about the royal family.
Life of privilege.
Yep. And all the ups and downs and the controversy and the scandals around them. What she has done, because she was never supposed to be queen.
No,
she was never supposed to be. Her uncle was supposed to be king, and it was supposed to be his family that carried on the bloodline. And then, of course, her dad ended up stepping in, and then she it's a fascinating life.
Yeah.
It's incredible what she's done.
To have lasted as long, too, on the throne. And what a time to do it. You could have been a monarch for 70 years in like the 800s, and nothing would have changed. Like nothing in the world changed for hundreds of years. And the way things change now, like what she's seen from the beginning of her reign, from emails to, unfortunately, like war. And
to be thrown into it at such a young age, losing her father, not only dealing with that loss, but then having to then rule this nation and these countries, that responsibility at such a young age, getting a new bride, having a family, like so many things that now it has all how the world has adapted and shifted and how we see things and do things now even. It's incredible to think what she's been through.
And through her reign, she's had 14 U.S. presidents.
She's met 13 of them. Out of the 14 U.S. presidents, all of the prime ministers. The only president she did not meet was Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, I don't know why, because he would have been post 63 to 68. I thought Gerald Ford, because he was only a president for like a week and a half.
Was it really short?
Oh, because he was the only man ever to become president who was never vice president or elected president. It was Spiro Agnew, when he was vice president under Richard Nixon, resigned. And he appointed Gerald Ford as his vice president. And then when the Watergate scandal went really bad and Richard Nixon resigned, Gerald Ford, you're now president. And I think 14 months later was the election against Jimmy Carter, and he lost.
Wow.
So, okay, but you were president.
And she met him.
And she met him, Lyndon B. Johnson. Never got a chance to meet him in 5 years. Well, it was a busy time. Maybe she was hanging out with the Beatles.
Lots going on.
A lot going on in the 60s for her over there. She was handing out MBEs to everybody.
Getting ready to send emails, looking after her dogs.
And finally, on the show this morning in sports, the New York Mets have a 10.5 game lead in the National League East. And I read the stats that said no team with a 10-game lead or more on June the 1st has ever lost their division. It's happened 6 times that a team has so dominated early on, won their division each time. 3 times they'd go on to win 100 games and twice go on to win the World Series. So the Mets are going to be in the World Series. I'm calling it on June the 2nd. And they're going to play the Yankees for what they call the Subway Series. New York to New York, New York, New York, New York, New York, New York, New York. And I think the Mets are going to win it all this year. I think the New York Mets are going to win the World Series
But do you think the Yankees and the Mets will meet in the final?
The Subway Series. That's what they call it.
The World Series,
New York, New York.
Wow.
That's what I think it's going to be.
June 2nd, I'm going to star it.
And the Mets are going to beat the Yankees. Come on, Blue Jays, prove me wrong. But it's going to be the Mets in the National League, according to statistics.
I can't even let myself believe that the Jays will make it. That would be wonderful.
They're only 5 games back, and the Yankees are world beaters. So the Jays,
it's only June.
Any other year, though, the record the Jays have and the stats are putting up would be winning the division. Like any other year.
And they're not.
But the Yankees are so dominant now, and Baltimore's so bad.
I can't like the Yankees, though.
I know, but Josh Donaldson.
I can't even like him right now.
I know, you can't like him.
I can't like him
he's
while he's in New
unlikable.
York. He's changed. He's not a J anymore. I want the Jays. I like the Jays. But it's only June, and I think that too. It's only June. Can we let them just play for the next couple of months?
New York Mets. New York.
Fine.
Are you kidding me? I'm already working on fantasy football.
I know.
And
You've
who's
moved
going to
on.
win the Super Bowl?
Now that you've called it, you're like, okay, I'm done. Let's go on to football. But we got to get through golf first because we talked about that this morning.
PGA Tour just trashed out. Dustin Johnson loses his deal with RBC, so he's not coming to the Canadian Open, and he's going to go play in the Saudi-backed league.
I have so many questions about this league.
I know. So do I.
So many questions. Like, why? I have to wonder what's so bad about the PGA with the history and their traditions, and everybody loves playing on this circuit. And I'm thinking of the one just in April. What was the one in April?
The Masters.
The Masters.
Right.
I'm thinking back to that one and how steeped in tradition that is. And to
Right.
me, golfers, that's the one they want to be at. They love it. And I think the PGA in general kind of carries that same mystique and that same tradition. So why would they leave it? Why would they want to leave it?
According to them,
Okay.
I can't speak.
I'm just wondering what I'm missing
According
here.
to the ones, so it's great if you're an average golfer. It's great if you're a beginning golfer. It provides this structure and this means for you to make a tremendous living. If you're at the top, I'll give you a bit of a longer distance. If you're at the top,
Okay.
it feels a little restrictive. It sort of feels like a lot of people at these tournaments are coming to see me because I'm here. Because when you promote that it's the Canadian Open, and you know who's going to be here this year, da 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 da.
Okay.
Oh, they sell more tickets because da 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 da's there. But I don't benefit.
So do they feel like they've kind of hit the ceiling?
I
it's kind
think
of
so.
we're here and now there's nowhere else for me to go and nothing new for me to do, and you're not letting
Right.
me do anything more.
Right.
So now,
Well, let's look around the world. If you're the top hockey player in North America, where do you play other than the NHL? But the NHL once used to be too restrictive, and guys like Ted Lindsay wanted a players' association because they wanted something that was never heard of before called free agency. That the team that drafts me doesn't get to keep me my whole career and designate what I get paid because I think I'm worth more. Well, we're not going to trade you and you can't quit. So they developed something called free agency that would allow another team to pay me more if they wanted to. And if you think, Mark, this has been around forever. There was a time that was never there. Ted Lindsay was just blacklisted for trying to come up with something that would get players more money, benefits, things like that they take for granted now. But what did it take to really cement it? The WHA. Another league came around where you got the Edmonton Oilers and all these other franchises, and Bobby Hull left the Chicago Blackhawks for $1 million to go play for Winnipeg, to give credence to this league. Our own Bobby Hull did that, and all of a sudden the NHL said, ooh, we're not the monopoly anymore. I guess we have to treat players better if we want them to stay. So here's the PGA Tour, cats meow, and another league is going to come along. The players saying, no, we want to make more money. We want to have more independence on the things that we have. And the PGA Tour says, you leave, you can't come back. You play in one of their tournaments, you can never play in ours. And Dustin Johnson says, fine. It's $10 million if you win over there. Tournaments are only 48 players. And this league wants the best players in the world. Because the PGA, for all of its worldwideness, is a North American tour. And then there's a European tour. This tour is a worldwide tour. So what they're hoping to attract is the best players in the world. So every one of these tournaments is the best of the best of the best.
And where do they play?
Around the world. Different spots around the world. But all of the money's coming from Saudi Arabia, and that's the stink. This money is from people with horrible human rights records.
Yeah.
And so it's just backed by these billionaires and started up by Greg Norman, who wasn't going to have the best reputation. And then Phil Mickelson stepped into it. And when they said, well, why would you go do that? He said, hey, I'm holding my nose. I know it stinks. I don't like the fact that Saudi Arabia's backed it. I don't get it. But I'm tired of the PGA Tour telling me how I have to run my golf life. I want to go somewhere that doesn't do that. And that's what opened the Pandora's box for Phil. is he was going to go to that as a protest against PGA Tour, not because he loved the Saudis or he wanted more money. He loved the fact that there was going to be something else that would allow golfers to dictate how their careers went.
An option for them.
What we would choose to do. And maybe what we choose to do is every time I make an appearance, I get paid whether I win or not, because there's no appearance fees on the PGA Tour. Yeah, but when I go to that tournament, you sell more tickets. So shouldn't I get a little bit more of that? Because I don't have a guaranteed salary.
Yeah, these locations are making all this money.
Yeah, so they're starting to ask these questions. And for example, guys like Phil Mickelson and Rory McIlroy years ago, when the Ryder Cup would go up, you don't get paid to be in the Ryder Cup. It's us versus them, right? Europe versus the United States. Started asking where the money went. And they were deemed to be unpatriotic. How dare you make this about money? They said, no. Somebody's making a lot of money because of this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I get it. I'm asking you, where does it go, PGA Tour? Mm-hmm. Oh, you're unpatriotic for asking. Hey, so all of this sort of stinky stuff about the money started coming up, and a lot of these guys said, I don't like the way you're doing business. And if I don't get a better say in how I'm viewed, I'll go somewhere else. And I think the PGA, maybe, I'm making this part up, maybe they said, where are you going to go? And now there's somewhere they can go. And so Dustin Johnson and Graham McDowell are going to go.
Is he the one that's married to Gretzky's daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
They just got married. One time, number one in the world.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. To me, that's a thumbnail. Maybe I have it factually incorrect, or I've got dates wrong or something, but I think that's the gist of it.
Okay.
That they wanted this. They didn't realize that there would be the acrimony that there is, or that the PGA Tour would be as tooth and nail about it as they are, which is, we're going to slam the door if you go. I think they thought, well, I'll play 2 or 3 over there and the rest over here, right? I don't think they realized the PGA was going to dig in their heels.
Do you think they'll stay dug in, though?
I don't know.
If enough people go.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the USFL comes up. The NFL isn't losing its shorts. The NFL isn't saying, we don't want another football league. Go ahead, have another football league. Nobody's dumb enough to put it in the fall. But go ahead, have another one, because these guys aren't as good, right? Nobody from the NFL is leaving to go to that one because they're in the best league.
But people are leaving the PGA to go to.
Yeah, see, that's the point. So when they say, well, where are you going to go? We're going to find a place better. The NFL doesn't treat their players saying, we'll go to another league that's better. There isn't one. We've made the best league. That's why it's the best sport. That's why it gets all the eyeballs. So, I don't know. Tennis doesn't have this yet, right? WTA is the best. You don't hear Rafael Nadal saying, I'm going to go play in a different set of tournaments.
Well, who knows, though? That could be coming too.
Yeah, but again, Rafael Nadal and these guys, they pretty well run their own, they get appearance fees. They play where they want.
If it was an issue,
That's right.
It could follow the same.
But the PGA Tour, when the pros say, we'd kind of like to talk about something, are told, mind your own business. And that's just not a good way of doing business in 2022.
Well, you can't do that anymore. Honestly.
That's right, you can't.
Can't.
At that kind of money, you can't.
You cannot run any business like that anymore. It has changed so much that you do have to work in cooperation with your quote-unquote employees or your golfers or whoever. It has to be a partnership. It can't be not maybe an equal partnership, certainly, but you have to work together to come to a common ground, to a solution. Otherwise, you're going to end up in Saudi Arabia.
And look, I would love to be able to play golf. I mean, John Mills from our area here, he lives in Oshawa, who was on the PGA Tour, couldn't keep his card in his first year. He made $600,000. And he's a fabulous golfer. Holy smokes. Came out here Bay of Quinte and shot 65 one day from the backs. Hadn't played it in a while. Made eagle on one. I mean, it's a whole other level of golf. But my point is, would I love to make $600,000 a year and I'll do whatever they tell me to do?
Yeah.
I'll absolutely do it.
That's what I'm thinking. Will it clear the way then for other people?
Until probably then they started being more of a hindrance on my career than a help. And there's a point at which I'd say, you know what, I'm willing to give back. You helped me a lot. Yes, I'm willing to do that, even though it's kind of a pain in the butt now and I don't want to. But if you get to the point where it's like, no, you're making an awful lot of money.
Oh, certainly.
Or you're telling me what to do and you have no right to simply because you gave me my card 30 years ago, I could see why this would start.
Will the PGA then turn into kind of just a stepping stone? This is where you start before you move over here. Like it kind of, because the popular or the really good ones go to this new Saudi group of tournaments, and then there's all these spaces available, which could lead the way for up and coming. They play a few years, as you just said, with the PGA, and then kind of move. Like, I wonder how moving forward it will all play out.
I just don't think that the PGA Tour wants to be thought of as the Nike Tour.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they.
To me, it'll be interesting to see what next April for the Masters, if they say, no, you guys can't play, or whether the Masters says, we'll invite who we want. Now you get the Masters fighting with the PGA Tour. Okay, so Masters is separate than the PGA. No, I'm just saying, not now. Is the Masters not part of the PGA? Sure. Is it? Okay. But they're also the Masters. Yes. Like they have their own rules from any other tournament. So and what if they can say that to the PGA? I'm just saying, what if they did? What if the PGA says you can't play in any tournaments and the Masters says, wait a minute, we didn't agree to that. We want Dustin Johnson, a past champion, to play. And the PGA says, no, we can't. Now you got Augusta National fighting with the PGA. I don't know. Will it happen? That would be interesting. Are there rules? Couldn't all golf courses do that then? Wherever they play the PGA, could they not come out and say, you know what, you made that comment without checking with us first, and we want them here. So guess what? Do what you got to do. I don't know. And maybe nobody says anything till Augusta does. Then Riviera does. Then Congressional does. Then Torrey Pines does. Then Pebble Beach does. I don't know. Big tours. Well, if they're not getting the crowds and the money, how could they not say something? Full podcast today, Charity Oh, my Brown. Gosh. Could have gone on, but you people got to go vote, for goodness sakes. It's election day. Winner on the show coming up tomorrow morning. It is also a Friday, so Jimmy will be by with Rumor Day, and we've got your dad joke on World Bicycle Day tomorrow. Full day. I'm thinking of taking my bike, but it would take me an hour. I'm so old. It wouldn't take you an hour to ride your bike to work. It feels like it would. It's a World Bicycle Day. And why aren't we riding bikes more often? It's because of where we live. It's these suburbs. If we all lived in cities again, but we're spacing out. But what would it mean in gas prices and the like in the environment if we all rode bikes more? World Bicycle Day. It's all part of Mark and Charity Mornings tomorrow on 95.5 Hits FM.